The first thing to understand is the starting my for strike. Okay? It is much closer than you want to think. Okay? So if I imagine like last night's drill, right? It was working on the counter right. Okay? So if I had the mentality, it was a strike, that's a strike, counter right is a strike, and it was off the lead jab. Counter the lead jab with a counter right, okay? If I had the Aikido mentality, the one that you have now for striking, and I'm being Ikkyo, so he has his guard, I would have been doing that stuff from out here. There you go. But no one did that because that is clearly intuitively wrong. Okay? There's no need for a counter if he's going to start his strike from out there. So he's going to start his lead jab from out there. You see? Okay, so he's going to hit me with it. If he's going to start his strike from out there, don't engage the strike. Deviate, okay? So he's going to start his Shomenuchi from out there. You don't have to do anything. If you look at Katate Dori and consider this wrist the target, Shomenuchi's target is further in. Do you see that? So if he attacks this target from there, let's look at where he started. Do you see? What do you want to say? I don't know. 2 feet, 3 feet, boom. And now he's supposed to target this target. Got it? So the distance from this target to this target is probably another foot, at least, maybe more. So he should start, if that's where he starts Katate, he should be in that 1 to maybe more feet in to hit this target. Do you understand? Okay? Now there's no time to get out of the way. There's no time to deviate like I was. I have to address that strike. Okay? So that strike starts here. This is where striking happens. He's not southpaw, but pretend you are. He takes his guard up, and look, we're back in striking range. Okay? So first understand the logic of where the strike starts. It does not start back out here. Okay? Dude that starts back out here, I would deviate, or I'd have time to draw my weapon and deviate. Okay? So that's not where this is starting. We're in tight. Okay? And then in Kihon, he's going to strike, we say, strike the back leg. Okay? That means he's going to just draw a line across, so he's going to step through, and boom, that's that strike. He's not going to strike the front leg. Okay? In Kihon. You can change it and do it that way, but in our Kihon, he attacks the back leg, and he does it with a step through. You could, of course, have this be his front hand, and he goes with a shuffle. You could do it. It doesn't matter. Okay? But we standardize the beginner Kihon. He comes in, and he steps into Ihonmi. Okay? Alright. The first skill you want was, well, set it up so you learn the skill. Okay? You're not going to strike him, and then he blocks that skill. Other hand. Because that's not a skill at all. That's also a weird understanding of Kihon. You describe his reaction. Okay? So we don't do that. Second thing we don't do, he strikes me and I block. Oh, not it. And then I go into arm manipulation. You're not doing that. What's a block? He's coming up and I'm going up. He's coming up, I'm going up. That's a block, and I'm trying to stop him. You have to stop those two things. So it can't be me attack, he blocks, and it can't be he, boom, and I block. Nor can it be that he just sticks his hand out and you won't know what to do. Yeah, it's just like you're dusting dust off my head, you see. It can't be that either, because there was no downwardness to the strike, okay? And when you're training Shomenuchi, you're working on the energy on the vertical plane. So his strike has to come up, and his strike has to come down. It's not the sagittal plane. It's not Jodan ski, okay, with someone else's Jodan. Got it? Okay, so once you're in that environment, the first one is the body reading. Just like when we're here, change your stance how you like, okay? And he goes, I can see the jab before it manifests itself. Do you understand? The body reading is a skill. You need the skill. You can't fight without reading the body, okay? So, the first skill that I want is know when he's going. Look for weight shifting. Look for shoulder changing angles. Look for inhalations. Look for nostrils flaring, eyes opening. You have to have that because you can't wait till you see the strike. You're going to break one of the first two rules. Probably number 2, you're going to block it, okay? So, first skill, as he goes, you read the body so you know, boom. And then the second skill is you match yin and yang. So the only opening for Shomen in this case is when it's going up. That's the yin energy. That's when I can ED me without breaking rule number 2. So it goes up and I catch it going up. I won't even talk about what I'm doing there. You just want it up. Up. You're not waiting. Up. Front foot up. Back foot. We won't deal with the inter yet. Just up. Up. Okay? Let's try it. Go. Okay, so the last point is what to not do, not having it be a strike, blocking, stopping. Those are all wrong. That's not Aikido. Flat out. Got it? So you want to learn Aikido, don't do those things. And then it creates the possibility for this other yin-yang reconciliation. There's only one yin spot on Shomenuchi in this case, and it's when he goes up, so I have to read the body so I can take advantage of the opening when it goes up. Okay? That was the last point. Okay, this point, what am I doing? My hands are going to be as if you're in Jodan. So you have your Jodan Tesabaki that you would do all the time. What that is open-end triangles dominating the center line. So you're going to do the same thing. Now you don't split your hands apart. It's not time to split your hands yet. It's the same thing if we're up close and I feel him rising up to hit my head. I'm not going to open this up because you're going to get headbutt. Boom! You got it? So until he does something, I will guard the center line, cover up my vital areas on the top part of my body. That's going to be until I get my deviations. Do you understand? So don't open yourself up. Keep yourself closed. So arm positioning is here. With the other hand, in the hand sword position at the tricep tendon of insertion, and the other hand is above that. So the two hands are working in conjunction. Okay? If you're here in the Ikkyo grab at the beginning, the other hand is below the elbow. That's not good because I'm on the outside of the arm. For example, if I do it over here, let's just look at this common mistake. Okay? I'm doing my control at the wrist. A lot of you are doing that. Okay? How did you get there? There's only one way. I can't reach the wrist if I was entering on the yin. Do you see? There's no way. So what do you think you did? You clashed. Do you see? And in that clash, you also break the rule. When on the outside of the arm, you need to be above the elbow in order to generate the angle cancellation. If you're below the elbow, then he can bend around it. Okay? So same thing. If he's on the outside and he only holds the wrist like a check, and it's easy to get around it. Same thing. He's at the wrist here. Boom! It's easy to get around it. it happens instantly. Boom! And it hits, okay? So whenever you're on the outside, you have to be at the elbow, and I can't get this joint to go around it. It can't yield without creating further opening. So don't be on the wrist. It's not going to be right because you only got there by clashing, and then you get no true angle cancellation. So he goes up here. Don't use this hand yet. It's not dominant. It's just staying there. Boom. Once I enter, what is next dominant is the Omotoe hip. So I push up, and create the body lock here. My body is doing it. So up to my body. Well, you want your koshi involved. You get the body lock here. Several points have to be made at this point. In order to get the body lock, I have to allow his lower half of his body to continue going forward. You cannot stop and push him. He will never come onto you, okay? So this makes the technique consistent with all the rest of your art. Keep his forward energy going. Don't stop his energy. Don't try to stop him. Don't fight him, okay? So up, keep it going forward. How do you keep it going forward? Boom, 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 boom. Don't push this back. Up, and it's going to go around you. And then you're going to yield. It goes up and around you as you go inside it with your step. So up, let it go around you. Up, let it go around you. So all you have to do is here is establish the ground path, add the adhesion, and let go of it. And it'll go around you. And you have to time your hip there. Do not do this. Do not push him backwards. Oh, watch how his hands go. You see? If I stay here, it'll run into me, but I'm not going to stay here. I go inside it. Inside it. Inside it. Whoa. Oh. So you should read my body too, right? Which side is forward? Stop. You don't need to look at my feet. You look at my shoulders. He goes, boom, inside. We're going to do it. Do you see? Inside. No. Inside. Inside. Hands in place. Inside. Okay? Don't stop him. Let his lower half keep going forward. And let his arm go forward once you get your Idimi in triangle. Okay? And then step your side inside. What is going to be the inertial resistance? You're using it. Okay? Go. Okay, so what you're doing now is increasing your martial viability. Okay? It is more martially viable to control his center of gravity, his balance, his posture, his spine, than to control his arms. Okay? So that's what you're doing. You're not attacking his arm. I am touching his arm, but I'm not attacking his arm. I'm getting his balance and getting his center. Okay? You have to understand that. You have to not go and try some arm techniques, okay? So he's much stronger than me, and you see, you go, oh, I get it, fulcrum, lever, okay? So he's got fulcrum and lever, got it? And he's gonna get me down. Go ahead, go ahead. And even this little strength difference, he can't do it. No one can do it. All you gotta do is try it for real, and you're gonna say, fuck, that didn't work, okay? And you don't have to say that the little 80-pound drunk girl in heels that you're trying to arrest for public intoxication was on PCP. It just doesn't work, okay? The other thing is this. Every fulcrum and lever has its ideal positioning in order to maximize its force output. That requires the fight to stop moving. That breaks the rules of fighting. Fights don't stop moving, okay? So if I stay still, go ahead, and it's still not, you can try your hardest, it's still not enough to overcome me, even though he can kill me on the bench press, okay? But once I start moving, I'm gonna change its ideal. Go ahead and do it. And it requires even less output on my part to overcome that engine. Do you understand? Okay, so, therefore, do not try fulcrum lever on the arm. It does not work, okay? And it's not better than what we're doing. So, don't try to get that wrist and try to do that. Do you see that? In any of your sneaky ways. Here, no, don't do it. Attack the center, in here. Attack the center. That's your goal. If you have to think, I'm not doing Ikkyo, then think you're not doing Ikkyo and just do a new technique, okay? So, center, there's your adhesion, right? Your Aikido adhesion. You see, I don't need to do that because I don't need to do that. I'm using his energy. His inertia was going forward. It's pushing into this hand. There's no need to grab it. There's no need. It just guide it around. What am I doing here if I'm not grabbing it? I'm staying with it. I'm not pushing it down. Don't push it down. Don't pull it. Just stay with it. Ooh, stay with it. Stay with it. As it lowers, I'm staying with it. No. Just get his center. Center. No push-pull. Try to chill on your grabbing and get an Aikido adhesion going instead. Attack the center. Use his inertial progress to create the adhesion. Attack the center. Okay? Let's go. Okay, going back a little bit, I mentioned it that you're using an Aikido adhesion to get that energy to come around you. And that's what's sticking his arm to your hands. You don't need to grab it, okay? Definitely why you don't want to do an inferior method of fulcrum lever, okay? So, in order to do an Aikido adhesion, his energy has to go into the ground, you see? So, he's pushing, you can push, he's pushing backwards, right? And that energy is in the ground as I'm moving. It's not me bracing on it, not me bracing on it, okay? This energy is in the ground, and that's, as it turns, right? That's what's allowing it to go around you. So you can't do lurch stepping. You see that? You can't be that. So you're going to go from one mid-foot vector on the rear foot to the other, you see? And you stay on that mid-foot vector. So you can't lurch, boom, boom. It's boom, boom, all the time. Mid-foot, mid-foot. No different than this drill. I'm here and I want to walk, mid-foot, 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 mid-foot. He's bracing on me, same exact thing, mid-foot, 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 mid-foot. You can't just walk. Boom. In. Continuing now from where we left off. The technique is a threat constantly to the center. Remember, not arm to control center, center to control arm. Okay? So that means attack the center, attack the center, attack the center. Do not come off the center. This will answer the question, well, how does the arm stay in place? How does it stick to me? Inertially, at the beginning, because it was going that way. And here, because I'm going into the arm. Got it? I'm going into the center, the arm will stay in place. So you're going to go boom. I'm going to go into the arm. This is the arm. You're going to look for the center. You're going to look for this attackable angle. Boom, boom, this angle. Do not think table and legs. Do not think table and legs. So don't go, oh, I'm going to pull him off his balance. Pull him off his balance. I'm not pulling him off his balance. I'm taking the whole table and I'm just flipping the whole table over. Okay? So, in, think of this outer knee being on the line of attack of his face. If you need a reference point. Boom, boom, right in line of attack. Don't start fading out and go to the extremities of the body. Boom, pop right there, straight in. Different. You're going to have to catch that arm. I'm going to change it. Here, I stayed with the arm. Okay? And now, how do I get him down? Not by pulling out, by taking this angle here. And that's where I let it fall. Boom, pop, boom, in. Here's where you let it fall. Boom, boom, in. As you can see, I don't go down to the wrist in Kihon. Okay? I'm not trying to hurt him. I'm just learning how to control the center now for ballistic strikes instead of fixated movement of the grabs. A lot of the difficulty comes from what you're perceiving you're doing. If you perceive that it's control the arm to control the body, then what I'm saying makes no sense to you, okay? But if you have experience, like actually trying to arrest someone who doesn't want to get arrested, someone who's going to fight you back, you realize this can't be it, okay? And then it opens the door for the possibilities. There is a place where I neither push nor pull, okay? So, for example, where I don't need to grab the arms to keep the arms. Do you see? The only reason I need to grab to keep the arms is I'm behind. I'm behind in my mind. If I were to stay up, I don't need to grab the arms to keep the arms. Do you see that? But you have to open yourself up to that possibility. Okay? And you change things. You ask the question, how do I keep up with the arms such that I'm not behind, such that I do not have to pull the arms to keep the arms? Do you got it? So I gave you that angle of entry, which makes more sense, okay? Meaning, if this goes south, I get a knee kick or a mount, rather than start fighting on some guy's arm. That doesn't make sense. That's not martially viable. All right. The same thing is happening. You're picturing in your head a kind of lateral movement through the sagittal plane, wherein you are moving the person's line of gravity outside their base of support. And so by default, unknowingly, you're traversing the mat like crazy, okay? And again, martially, that is low probability. If my technique requires this much space, it's going to require this much time, and that's an abundance of time in which someone can counter and things like that, okay? So what do I mean? You're doing your technique, and we're going to move all this way. You see? You can have that understanding as you're playing with these sources, but you want to not do that anymore. You want to understand, once you understand these sources, you want to just use them. That's what governs the technique, not my foot patterns, which are based upon some imagery which may not be what you were actually doing, okay? So when he enters, this technique is done. That's what I'm looking for. He goes, that's the same technique. Much quicker, much shorter. Not here. Much done. Done right away. So you can boom, hit him and keep moving past him if you wanted to. Okay? So see if you can reduce it to at least one tatami. Shoot for half a tatami. Okay? Put it. Okay, let's talk about the pin, okay? You're going to see a different perspective leads to an entirely different technique. But you have to look closely because you guys have been staring at that technique for decades now, and some of you are still doing the mistakes that are overtly taught, block, clash. It's not a strike from Uke, it's a strike from you. You don't have to read the body. It's actually Jodan ski, they just hang it out there. You push and pull, you do inferior engines like fulcrum and lever, you attack the arm, you attack the center. All that is wrong, but it's a different technique. It's not the art, it's not martial, okay? You do the pin different too. So I'm just here. It was one Aiki adhesion from the first contact, if you remember, okay? I'm not pulling nor pushing, but he can't get off of me. There's no gap here. Do you understand? So I'm doing the same thing here at the end. I am not going to hurt him, and then he taps out. Why? That's called pain compliance. Pain compliance is as marginally ineffective as fulcrum and lever. Does not work. Who's it work on? It works on wusses. It works for non-angry people. That's probably not who's attacking you. So you don't get in the habit or the assumption that you can hurt people into quitting. You want control instead. When I'm here, what is the control? The control is the adhesion. Okay? I take the adhesion and I'm going to transfer it internally to Ikkyo. Because they're sourced from the same thing. So, as I go, he can't lift up. But I'm not really, he can't lift up. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to check if he can lift up. If he starts to move, you can move however you want, right? I'm keeping that adhesion, like you're going to get out of it. Get your ass out of it, okay? No. So you don't sit here and go unconscious. You have the same go, he goes, and you follow that in. You follow it in, and you keep it under your center, and now you can do your different things, okay? So don't zone out. Don't go internal. Don't shut your eyes off. You have to keep the same mechanics in place such that if something were to happen, you can respond to it. That's point number one. We go. Boom. You're here. Alive, but heavy and with Ikkyo power. As I'm not pretending that I'm going to hurt people, I'm not going to pretend that I'm pinning him, because you're not pinning him. He can roll over the top. So he goes, he's going to tweak my wrist. Go ahead, dude. It's not going to happen. Okay? It's never going to happen. I'm not tapping out because you're getting it. Go ahead and go, you see. It's not going to happen. I've learned how to reconcile pain. It's not going to happen. Then you add to it the fact that if I move the fulcrum out of its ideal location, everything gets weaker. Okay? And I can continue to do Aikido. If this is the point of contention, I just roll around the point of contention. I'm out. Do not rely on pain compliance, and do not see these as pins. They are a continuation of the internal skills. Got it? A transference from Aiki to the other side of the internal yin-yang to Ikkyo. But in order to do that, you have to pay attention that your awareness stays up and out and alive. Too many times you go into La La Land. And the uke goes into La La Land. Got it? Okay, let's try. Ikkyo and Aiki, you want an understanding of them, right? And you don't realize that your questions on them are dichotomous. Okay? And the lesson is introduced in terms of a dichotomy, but the dichotomy is false. It is a narrative. It is a poem that's to convey a feeling in you. You see, not just a feeling of emotion, but a feeling of body-mind, a particular body-mind. You get it? And this is why I do not venture into, I'll just do Tai Chi, and then you'll understand these internal aspects, because they're lost from Aikido, so cross-train in Tai Chi. I do not recommend that, because two reasons. One, even in Tai Chi, there are more people who never get it than do get it, okay? And two, your ultimate aim is a reconciliation of the dichotomy, the disappearance of all paradox, okay? So if I have to do that to overcomplicate what I'm doing with an abundance or an infinite amount of correspondences, just further and further and further down the dichotomy rabbit hole, I do not find that you are served by that, okay? So, what you ultimately have, while I might talk about an Aiki and a Kokyu, remember it's a yin-yang model, so the yin and the yang are born from the Tao. They come from the same thing. There's one thing, do you see? They're not two things that are totally separate from each other. They have the same source, and even in the diagram, there's always a little that's in the other one, okay? So there's no such thing as pure Aiki or pure Kokyu, all right? You're kind of using this very simple, just like the Tao Te Ching, there's yin and yang, and then what did the poets say? And from there, the 10,000 myriad things arose. 10,000 is the Chinese pre-modern number for infinity. Everything else comes from this combination, which is ultimately from one source, okay? So there's no need to go into all the different jin. There's no need to go into pong. There's just no need for that. If you understand what you're doing, you would eventually have to get rid of those things anyways, okay? So, for example, we'll just say administrative now. So his strike is coming up, right? And I am having this energy, his inertia is going that way, and I use that energy to create the friction that goes around me. Do you see that? That is Aiki. It's a communion between my hand and his hand, do you see? And that energy is going around me, you got it? But if you dissected that movement, do you get what I'm saying? I'm not gonna look anymore at the solid curve and the communion, okay? The communion itself it has within it an Aiki, and you can see it, a Kokyu, as you slice the radius up into its little micro vectors, okay? So, for example, let's move him out of the way, and he's gonna check a vector by pushing into it. Do you see? You get it? And he's going, he's pushing, and is that Aiki? This is Kokyu. Do you see? So the Kokyu is in the Aiki. And that is different, for example, what you guys might be doing is you're doing an external. So it's coming and you're just kind of yielding and getting it out of the way. You see? So he's going and you're going here. You see? Oh, you're just moving out of the way. Okay? So I'm going to do that lazy movement, and he's going to cut a vector across that radius. So I was going to move it that way. You see? Okay, now he's going to push on that vector. You see it over here, and it's like, no, it's going to compromise itself. Do you get it? Do you understand? Okay. So within the Aiki, there's Kokyu. And if I'm touching him within the Kokyu, there's an Aiki. Okay? So we're down to the pin, which is where your question came up. Is the transition from the Aiki a transition to weight? Well, no, because this is weight, and that's not what I did. And nor is it true that I didn't have a heaviness on the elbow control throughout the entire time. In that last version, because there was no Kokyu in the Aiki, that's why there's no sense of positional integrity. Got it? Which he would experience as weight, as mass, as force. Do you get it? Like, I can't push on that damn thing, and I keep going around it nonetheless, okay? So, it's not so much, and again, this is just a poem too. It's not so much that I stopped the Aiki, but a singular vector has come up. Do you get it? So all he's looking for is he's cutting the Aiki radius with the linear vector, and he's just like he did in that last demonstration, right? So he's pushing up, and he should feel that, oh, I can't push in on that, okay? It's not that I'm pinning his elbow down, because I'm not interested in pinning, because this is not how you pin somebody in a fight, okay? I'm just checking myself internally. So he's trying to push up, and I have the same thing, okay? But as you saw, as he started to move in the other demonstration, it has an Aiki to it, do you see? It's not that I'm sitting here and he pulls it out, and I go, fuck. Got it? So this is how to understand it, okay? When you do Kihon, Kihon is not Jiu, Kihon is not play, right? So you can do Kihon like that, as Nage, which means I'm in his center. I make sure I'm in his center, okay? But that's not Kihon. If I'm the Nage and I make sure I'm in his center, regardless if he's in my center, that's not Kihon, okay? Kihon is I get in his center from a yang perspective, and he gets in my center from a yin perspective. And it leads to an entirely different looking Ikemi, okay? But everything is the same. So I will ground vector, right? I will have Aiki and Kokyu as I go. I do have the additional element there because there is a kind of multiple attacker aspect to Uke that I actively address. He passively addresses it, meaning he's doing the technique with the consciousness of multiple attackers. I am doing the technique with the presence of multiple attackers, and understanding attacker as two different energy sources. One is him, and the second one is the mat. Okay? So as I go into the technique, I have to not only reconcile his energy, yin and yang, non-contestation, Aiki and Kokyu, but I have to do the same to the mat. Do you understand? So I don't fall to the mat in some weird-ass way. The mat has to be reconciled, okay? So as I go into the technique, I'm in his center as much as he's in mine. And he wasn't totally in my center, and you saw the energy leak out, okay? So there is, as I felt that technique, you're not entering enough. I don't know if you did or not, but it felt like your energy was out here instead of in here. We'll watch the video to see what happens. So you're in, there you go. Now he's in me. Oh, third step, lost me. Third step, round. This is different. Pick a side once and for all. Different. 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 Into his body. Staying in my body. You guys see that? Questions? Comments?
The transition from standing to being not necessarily completely prone on the mat, but getting down to the mat. It seems so soft and round. What is the mindset there?
I think, like I said, it's another energy, and I don't push on that energy. You got it? But I can't have a weakness on any vector of the rotation. Do you understand that?
Right.
So when we talk about a curve, and what I'm talking about now is the radius at all these various points are like spokes of a wheel. They will not collapse. Do you get it? And the energy that keeps the integrity of the radius, the curve, is dependent upon the integrity of the linear energy that creates the possibility of the curve. Okay? So the radii cannot be these soft, gooey things, unable to take pressure or force, right? That you're going to negate by trying to say, oh, I'm going to go around it. I'm going to go around it, do you see? So when you're coming down onto the mat, doing my technique, I'm not going to go boom. Do you see? That is a strong radius, but no curve. Nor am I going to go curve, because it's actually not that smooth a wheel. You see, you can hear it. Cut, 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 cut. Okay? So I am in him now. So I'll show you. You see? I'm in him as much as he's in me. So as we go here, right? I'm in 1 foot. Do you see? No different than when he was pushing. Now he's on 1 foot. We come here and go ahead, get your base, okay? And I'm on 1 foot. So he tries to push. Whoa, push. It's the ground vector. Do you see? So I'm in him as much as he's in me. Then he's going to do the Aikido around his person. And all I do is blend with that energy. Blending means harmonizing yin and yang, but harmonizing yin and yang means that uke has a mind. There's a particular space-time that I have to do, which means I got to move from one point to the other, where the other is appropriate, and at a rate that is appropriate. Do you got it? And that's all he's doing is Nage. I'm doing the same thing as Ikkyo. Okay? Well, as I said though, there's two things I gotta pay attention to, which is him and eventually the mat. So when I touch the mat, instead of boom here, it starts to yield into it. No different than when I let him, as Uke, turn me around. You could keep going, do you see? You could have kept going. But we're not working that. We're working, now you are going to do Aikido from the inside as Uke. So he initiates. He's giving me that energy, and I reconcile that energy. I don't go against it, and I don't look for a new opening in his energy. Okay? Usually what happens is why we crash with the mat, aside from theatrics and the choreographed uke, is the same reason why you clash with Nage, right? You are afraid. You're afraid. You feel you enter into an antagonistic relationship with them, And as a result, awareness goes down, your mind becomes fettered. So, well, the same thing happens to the mat. If you pay attention before your lack of harmonization with the mat, you will see the same things. Fettered mind, unawareness, fear. They're there too, okay? What you want to do as uke is take advantage of the fact that in essence there's two energy sources that have to be addressed with the art, not just one. That is why uke is by far the more cultivating role between Nage and uke, okay? It's not because, I don't know, some weird crazy thing that people talk about. You're doing more at more intense levels. It is, in other words, a more stressful environment, and so it can produce the most adaptation. Okay? Okay, so the question was on the dichotomy, and the challenge of living life like that. Remember in our school, the dichotomy is part of what we call the ego tripartite. It is in essence the normal or the common or the popular functioning of the human mind, okay? It simultaneously sets up the ego identity, the sense of self, the sense that you're a self, who you are, you see, and has it function as egocentrically as an interpretive model for the world. Okay, so it has that one component. There's three components, and it's the second component, which is it simultaneously gives rise to dichotomy, to dichotomous thought, dichotomous living, right? Which in turn, you can have them be quiet. Which in turn starts a life where it is motivated by avoidance and attraction. You see, it comes to us through the simultaneously arising what we call the three diseases: fear, pride, and ignorance. So if you look at most of Aikido, today that's what you see. So why do you block the arm? Why do you stop the arm? Why do you take away the conflict? Because you cannot reconcile it, do you see? Because you have dichotomies. So artificially taking away the dichotomy, such as uke does not actually attack with Shomenuchi, I am throwing a strike and they block it. Or actually, uke doesn't really strike at all, they kind of just stick their arm out there. This is an artificial removal of the dichotomy. The reason you have to do that is because you cannot reconcile the dichotomy because the ego tripartite has you see. But it is every bit as much a functioning of the ego tripartite as it is the Nage who stops uke, who blocks uke, who tries to control the fulcrum lever at the elbow and wrist. It is all dichotomy, all abiding in dichotomy. What traditional East Asian culture did is identify the problem. Man, us human beings, we seem to fuck ourselves over by just letting this particular mind of ours just do what it does. And through that, you had the birth of philosophies, technologies, of self, religions, traditions that were trying to help us transcend that mind aspect, okay? Your art, Aikido, is born from those efforts. This is why it's not Aikido if you block the arm, if you stop the uke, if you get rid of artificially all conflict. That is not Aikido, okay? Well, where does it come from? Like, why? Why? Because it's where the advantage rests. To abide in the ego tripartite is to lose, to suffer, to endure pain. At the heart of reconciling the ego tripartite and with it solving for dichotomy is the quest for wisdom, advantage, the cessation of suffering. Do you understand? So, what kind of person seeks that? It's really somebody who's, like I would say, has a kind of uber ego. Like, I'm tired of pain. I am so tired of suffering. I am tired of losing. Like, really I am. And then they stop. So traditionally, and in Omotoe, this is called spiritual audacity. You see, so you can't be a warrior without that kind of like, I'm tired of sometimes winning, sometimes losing. You see, and if I conflict, sometimes I'll win, sometimes I lose. If I don't conflict, then I can't lose. You see, so who is it? It's a person that is really, truly, truly tired of losing. Okay? And we call that spiritual audacity. Why do we call it audacity and not just pride? Right? Because it's abiding in wisdom. I'm going to let go of my ignorance and I'm going to abide in wisdom. Why is that wisdom? Because it's the sensation of suffering. It's the generation of advantage. That's why we're calling it wisdom. It's the choosing of one way of living the world over another way of living the world. Okay? So if you come to your Aikido, you're going to block in fulcrum lever and force and yang-yang conflicts or artificially negating all conflict for you, right? From the warrior point of view, you're the loser. You're a loser. Okay? You need to dig deeper and go, I want to stop losing. I want to stop suffering. I want to abide in wisdom. I want to find the way and walk the way. Now, again, it's very popular to say that anyone can walk the way, but this is not historically accurate. The way is narrow. The path is narrow. The gate is hidden. The gate is small. You will see that all the time. Now, if you pay attention to your lives and you're living dichotomously, most of the time you have the effects of the dichotomy. It generates some anxiety. It generates some reversal of fortune, let's say, for example. But you eat it up. It's never that great, you see? And it's even less great in terms of its negative impact in your life when you're in the developed West. What really happens to you? But because you don't have spiritual audacity, you don't raise the problem. You just endure the negative consequences. It's the same thing when you do your light training. You see? You have your light Kihon, for example, and you're trying to learn the form administratively in a controlled environment like today, and some of you just could not stop fulcruming and levering the elbow. You just could not stop. You weren't ever going to do it. But what is the penalty for not doing it correctly in Kihon Waza setting? None. There's really none. There's really none. My teacher is so kind. He doesn't kick me out. He lets me stay here and keep doing this even though I'm not really doing it. He never puts before my face the hypocrisy and the wasted time that I'm doing. He just lets me keep coming. All I got to endure is his little snips, his little raising voice. That's about it. What are you missing? This spiritual audacity where that is not good enough for you. The worst you have here is when we go into play or we go into Jiu-jitsu and basically you can't do anything. So really, what do you have? How dire is that? Oh, you have to suffer about an hour of not being able to do anything. But you're going to go buy your Starbucks and you're going to watch your movies and listen to your music. You get over it. So it's fine. It's fine. That's the problem. Why is it fine? I don't have the spiritual audacity enough to walk the narrow path, to walk through the hidden gate. To be, no, that is not fine. You talk, for example, about, it's so hard to watch the play videos because it's so bad. I can't do anything. Well, let's work on the skill sets that made you bad. Let's work on this conflict resolution, harmonizing yin and yang in a Kihon Waza setting. But what did you do? The very stuff that made you bad. Do you see? Because you can't really change it externally. It has to be an internal thing. It has to be a true rejection inside of you. I will no longer participate in this dichotomous worldview. I will no longer do it. I will stop. I will stop. Only when you do that, only when you stop, can you start this new way. If you looked at the technique, how it was explained today, it began with, you have to stop doing these things. And until you do, then you can try this thing, okay? So I would like for you to understand the need for this spiritual audacity. You have to have it. You have to reach that point in you where you will not settle for that lesser you. You will stop. You will not wait for rock bottom. You will not wait for these dire consequences where you have no choice. They will not come. You stop so you can start.